You call it love. That dizzying plunge, that feeling like the world finally makes sense because she looked at you. You believe it's revelation, the arrival of truth after wandering in the dark. But Friedrich Hegel, the philosopher who dissected the very soul of human becoming, would tell you a darker, more devastating truth. What you call love is not the arrival of truth. It's the collapse of your independence, the end of your becoming. That euphoria isn't enlightenment, it's regression. It's a surrender of your own hard-won self-consciousness into the comforting, suffocating illusion of someone else's gaze. You aren't experiencing a connection to the divine. You're experiencing a flight from the arduous, essential task of building yourself. You are handing over the chisel and demanding someone else sculpt your statue. Hegel, in his monumental phenomenology of spirit, didn't offer cozy aphorisms about romance. He mapped the brutal, necessary journey of the human spirit towards actualization. And at its core lies a terrifying reality. Human identity is not static. It is not a precious gem discovered whole within. No, identity is forged violently, painfully, in the white-hot furnace of the dialectic. This is a relentless back and forth, a ceaseless struggle, the self against the world, freedom against resistance, the known against the terrifying unknown, the thesis clashing with its antithesis until a higher synthesis emerges. It's a process of negation, of breaking down what is false or incomplete to build something truer, stronger. It demands confrontation with the world, with others, and most terrifyingly, with oneself. It demands standing alone in the storm of your own contradictions and enduring it. But the man who falls too hard, who plunges headlong into the intoxication of another's presence, abandons this sacred process. He doesn't engage the dialectic, he flees it. He seeks a shortcut to wholeness, bypassing the necessary agony of self-confrontation. He clings to a woman not because she reveals some profound hidden truth about who he is, but precisely because she offers a temporary anesthetic against the excruciating pain of confronting who he is not, who he fears he might be, the vast emptiness of his unformed potential. She becomes a shield against the essential labor of becoming. This isn't love. It's a desperate act of existential avoidance. He mistakes the numbing of his inner ache for its cure. Central to Hegel's vision is the struggle for recognition. This isn't about craving attention or fishing for compliments. It's the existential imperative of every conscious being to have its fundamental freedom acknowledged by another free consciousness. This mutual acknowledgement, Hegel argues, is the very crucible where genuine self-consciousness is born. It's the moment you understand yourself as a self because another independent being sees you as one. But Hegel is brutally clear. This recognition must be mutual, reciprocal, and grounded in strength. It cannot be coerced, bought, or begged for. It must flow freely between equals. Here lies the trap for the man who falls too hard. If you demand recognition, demand to be seen, validated, confirmed from someone who does not freely grant it, if you anchor your entire sense of selfhood to someone who does not truly perceive or respect your inner freedom, you do not elevate yourself. You annihilate yourself. You don't become a man, you become a slave. You thought your all-consuming devotion proved your depth, your loyalty, your capacity for grand feeling. Hegel would spit on that notion. He would declare it proof of your profound weakness. You thought falling recklessly, surrendering completely, meant you possessed a deeper, more sensitive soul. Hegel would counter, it means you never formed a soul at all. Because love, without the bedrock of self-acknowledge, forged in solitude and struggle, is not love. It is dependency. It is spiritual bankruptcy. It is a man abdicating the very process by which he becomes himself and pleading like a helpless child for someone else to finish the job. But the cruel, inescapable truth is this. No one can complete you. Not your devoted girlfriend, not your loving wife, not the idealized woman who left your messages unread. She cannot give you genuine recognition if you do not first possess something within yourself worthy of being recognized. If you haven't wrestled through your own contradictions, if you haven't stared into the abyss of your fears, questioned your deepest assumptions, overcome your internal limitations, then there is simply nothing substantial there to see. No real self, no core identity, just raw, gnawing longing, just insatiable hunger masquerading as love. You are an empty vessel screaming to be filled, mistaking the echo for substance. Hegel's most famous and most brutal illustration of this dynamic is the master-slave dialectic. Imagine a primal confrontation. Two self-consciousnesses meet. Each desires recognition, but one fears death, the negation of self, more than the loss of freedom. This one submits, becoming the slave. The other, willing to risk death for dominance, becomes the master. The master gets recognition, but it's hollow, meaningless. It comes from someone he doesn't see as truly free or equal. The slave, denied recognition, is forced to work on the world, to transform raw material through labor. And here's the devastating twist: through this labor, through confronting and shaping reality, the slave actually begins to develop self-consciousness, a sense of his own agency and power. The master, reliant on the slave's subservience, stagnates. His identity depends on the slave's continued submission. You want to know why you suffer so intensely when love fails? Why you obsess? Why your entire world shatters when she walks away? It's because in the unspoken contract of your dependent love, you were the slave. You lived through her. Your sense of worth, your identity, your very spirit was borrowed currency. Her attention was your oxygen. Her approval was your sunlight. You performed, you contorted, you silenced your own voice, all to maintain the reflection you needed in her eye. Your value wasn't earned internally, it was leased from her perception. And the moment she withdrew that perception, the moment she ceased to participate in your fantasy of completion, your entire borrowed identity imploded. The scaffolding collapsed because there was no foundation. You are not in agony because you lost some pure, noble love. You are in agony because you never built your house on solid ground to begin with. You constructed a fragile palace on the shifting sands of another's regard. And when the tide turned, as it inevitably does, the entire edifice vanished. You should feel guilt, Hegel would insist, not for the feeling you called love, but for the profound deception, confusing love with escape, for turning a woman into your mirror, your therapist, your mother, your personal deity, and labeling that suffocating dependency devotion. It's not devotion, it's avoidance. Avoidance of your terrifying freedom, avoidance of your inescapable responsibility to forge your own being, avoidance of the fundamental philosophical truth that no man is born whole, he must become. And becoming requires effort, solitude, the crucible of contradiction, relentless thinking, the agony of breaking, and the disciplined labor of building. The man lost in this cycle doesn't need more love. He doesn't need another relationship to numb the pain. What he desperately needs is a radical confrontation with himself, with the raw, trembling fear that whispers he is not enough on his own, with the terrified child within that wants to outsource the entire terrifying project of becoming a man to someone else. Someone softer, someone beautiful, someone whose very presence promises to make the relentless inner ache finally stop. But Hegel would grab you by the collar and force you to see that ache is sacred. It is not your enemy, it is the engine of your spirit. It is the very tension he speaks of, the divine fire that drives consciousness towards truth, towards actualization. It's the friction that generates growth. If you silence it with infatuation, with a temporary narcotic of another's adoration, you extinguish your only chance of becoming a man of real substance, depth, and authenticity. You trade the possibility of genuine selfhood for the fleeting comfort of borrowed identity. And if you keep falling like this, recklessly, desperately, without form or thought, seeking only to lose yourself in another, you don't just risk another heartbreak, you risk the ultimate tragedy, never becoming who you were meant to be. The irony is as cruel as it is illuminating. The more you believe you are giving in your all consuming devotion, the more you are actually taking. You drain the other, demanding they sustain your illusion. You think your surrender makes you selfless, noble. Hegel would tell you it's the precise opposite. It's a subtle, insidious form of domination. Because you don't truly want to love her in her full, separate, free humanity. You want her to confirm you. You want her presence, her attention, her body to be a constant reassurance, whispering, yes, you exist. Yes, you are enough. Yes, your life has meaning. That's not love. That's spiritual theft. It's the theft of her autonomy, forcing her into the role of your validator. And it's the theft of your own potential, trading it for the cheap coin of external affirmation. And the most damning part, you're often utterly unconscious of this theft. When she leaves, when the illusion shatters, you feel like the victim, betrayed, abandoned. But Hegel's scalpel cuts deeper. You were the perpetrator. You tried to build your soul out of her freedom. You attempted to construct your identity using her consciousness as your raw material. And the moment she exercised her freedom, the moment she refused to be the architect of your being any longer, the entire flimsy structure collapsed. What devastates you isn't really the loss of her. What cripples you is the gaping, terrifying void where your own sense of self was supposed to be. Her departure merely ripped away the curtain, revealing the emptiness you'd spent so long decorating with borrowed reflections. Hegel names this crippled state dependent consciousness. It cannot stand alone. It has no inner compass, no intrinsic stability. Its existence is entirely contingent on the approval, the gaze, the validation of another. It lives parasitically, and this dependence is a one-way ticket to servitude, not necessarily chains and whips, but a far more insidious internal psychological slavery. You become needy, perpetually anxious, obsessive. Your life becomes a performance, a carefully curated act designed to elicit the validating gaze you crave. You stop living authentically according to your own inner truth, which remains unformed, and start living strategically. Every word is calculated, every gesture rehearsed, all in the desperate hope that she will keep reflecting back the image you need to feel momentarily real. You become an actor in your own life, playing a role scripted by your need for her approval. But this reflection you cling to, it's inherently fragile. It's never truly yours. It's a projection, a mirage dependent on her continued participation. And so you live in perpetual, low-grade terror of its disappearance. Her silence isn't just silence, it feels like a threat to your very existence. Her bad mood, it isn't just a passing emotion, it feels like a betrayal, a withdrawal of the life-sustaining validation. Every boundary she asserts, her need for space, her separate interests, her independent thoughts, isn't just a healthy expression of self. It feels like an existential wound because it reminds you, with brutal clarity, of the terrifying truth. You don't know who you are without her gaze. You never did. You've built your house on her eyes, and now the wind is blowing. Hegel's insight is simple but devastating. You cannot earn real recognition from a place of weakness. When you cling, beg, or perform for love, you bury your true self beneath desperation. The man who fears abandonment has already abandoned himself. Trading sovereignty for fleeting security, that's not love, Hegel would say. It's a dream, a dependency, a refusal to face the real work, the labor of the negative. This labor is not about despair, but self-confrontation. You must endure discomfort, reflect honestly, and confront your longing to be completed by another. That ache you feel, it's not solved by romance. It's a symptom of the unlived life, the unclaimed self. You must stop outsourcing your becoming to others. Take back the project of your selfhood. Love cannot save you. No woman can complete the man who hasn't completed himself. You must stop building your identity around her gaze. That isn't love, it's hiding. And when she leaves, it's not heartbreak you feel, it's annihilation. Because you never existed outside her reflection, Hegel urges us to face this fire, to suffer consciously, to break the false self through negation, and emerge as something real. True selfhood is forged, not found. The man who cannot endure solitude will always trade truth for comfort. Most men flee this silence. They jump from woman to woman, seeking anesthesia, not connection. But you cannot become without rupture. You must let suffering transform you, not into a tragic lover, but a man forged by clarity and resistance. You confused recognition with rescue, but no one can see you until you see yourself. No love is real until it's given and received by two whole beings. So stand, break, rebuild, not for her, but for the man you were always meant to become. Only then is love real. Only then